My name is Robert Walker, and I'm 78 years old. I've lived in this house on Willow Street for more than 4 decades. It's a 2-story home with faded blue paint, a squeaky front porch, and a mailbox that's leaned slightly to the left since 1993. It used to be a place that overflowed with life, kids' laughter, Sarah calling out from the kitchen, the smell of apple pie cooling on the counter. These days, it's too quiet. So quiet I can hear the pipes hum when the water heater kicks in, or the wind slipping through the cracks in the window frames. I was a firefighter for 32 years in Portland, Oregon. I carried people out of burning buildings, pulled families from wrecked cars, worked night shifts that bled into mornings without ever seeing my own bed. I took pride in my work, because it meant something. People knew my name back then, not because it was in the paper, but because I'd been there when they needed me. Sarah used to say she loved the way my uniform smelled faintly of smoke, like I'd been wrestling with danger and winning. Sarah's been gone for 10 years now. Cancer. She fought it hard, harder than anyone I've ever known, but the disease was relentless. When she passed, I thought the kids, Emily and Michael, would hold on to me tighter. For a while, they did. Every Sunday, they'd come over, bringing the grandkids, Jake and Lily, and the house would be loud again for a few precious hours. But life has a way of shifting. They got busy with their own families, jobs, and schedules. The visits turned into phone calls. Then the calls got shorter. Now, I see them maybe 5 or 6 times a year. I try not to hold it against them. I tell myself this is just how life is now. But there's a loneliness that seeps in, like water through a crack in the roof, slow, steady, and hard to stop. Some days, I catch myself talking out loud just to hear a voice in the room. The world outside doesn't treat you much better when you're old. At the grocery store last week, I was reaching for a can of soup when a young guy brushed past me so hard I almost dropped my cane. Didn't say, sorry, didn't even glance back. In line, 2 women stepped ahead of me, pretending they didn't see I was there. I let it slide. You get tired of making a scene over things you know won't change. Jake, my grandson, used to follow me everywhere when he was little. We'd go fishing, fix things in the garage, even wash the car together. Now he barely looks up from his phone when he visits. Last time, I asked him how school was going. It's fine, he said, eyes still on the glowing screen. That was the whole conversation. But there's something I haven't told anyone. Not Emily. Not Michael. Not even my doctor. Something happened last month that's been haunting me. It was late, just after midnight. I was in the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water, when I heard a sound, faint, like someone was on the porch. I went to check, and, well, let's just say I saw something that made me sit down right there on the steps, heart pounding in my chest. I haven't figured out if it was a warning, or a sign. I wasn't always the man who shuffles down the grocery aisle with a cane, trying not to get in anyone's way. There was a time when my name, Robert Walker, meant something in this town. Not because I was rich or famous, but because I was there when people needed help. I joined the Portland Fire Department at 22. I still remember my first real fire, a small 2-story apartment building downtown. The flames were eating through the roof when we pulled up. I was scared, sure, but I ran inside anyway. That day I carried a little girl out of the smoke, wrapped in my coat. Her name was Ashley. She clung to me so tight I could feel her tiny heart racing against my chest. Her mother kept thanking me through tears, and I'll never forget the way she looked at me, like I was the only thing keeping her world from falling apart. Back then, people in the neighborhood knew me by sight. The hardware store owner would wave as I drove past in the engine. Neighbors would stop me in the street to ask for advice on fixing a leaky faucet or to invite Sarah and me to their backyard barbecues. I wasn't just a firefighter, I was part of the heartbeat of the community. Sarah. God, she was my anchor. We met at a 4th of July picnic when I was 25. She had this sun hat that kept blowing in the wind, and every time she grabbed it, she'd laugh. That laugh could pull me out of the darkest day. We got married 2 years later in a little white church just outside of town. I promised her I'd always keep her safe, and I meant it. Our life wasn't perfect, no life is, but it was full. Emily was born in '73, Michael in '76. I worked long shifts, sometimes sleeping at the station for days, but I never missed a school play or a baseball game. If I was supposed to be there, I was there. Even when I came home smelling of smoke and sweat, I'd still read the kids a bedtime story. I remember one Christmas in the late '80s, Michael wanted a brand new Schwinn bike. Money was tight, but Sarah and I saved every spare dollar for months. When he saw it under the tree, his eyes lit up like the lights in Rockefeller Center. I thought moments like that would last forever. But forever has a way of shrinking. The kids grew up, moved out, built their own lives. The firehouse years eventually caught up with me, bad back, bad knees, lungs that have breathed in too much smoke. I retired at 65. The day I turned in my helmet and uniform, I felt like I was handing over a piece of myself. Now, when I walk through the city, no one waves. No one knows that I once ran into burning buildings or pulled people from car wrecks. I've become just another old man that people sidestep on the sidewalk. And yet, I still have those memories. They play in my mind like old home movies, faded, a little blurry, but warm. Sometimes I wonder if anyone will care about them when I'm gone. Or if they'll just be buried with me. They don't mean to make me feel like a burden, at least, I hope they don't, but that's how it's been lately. Take Emily, my daughter. She's a good woman, works as a nurse in a busy hospital in downtown Portland. Her shifts are long, and when she finally has a day off, she says she's just too tired to drive across town. She'll call instead. But it's never more than a few minutes. The conversation usually goes, "Hi, Dad, how are you?" "I'm fine, honey." "How's work?" "Busy, as always." "Listen, I have to run, but I'll check in soon." Soon sometimes means 3 weeks. Michael, my son, lives closer, but somehow I see him even less. He's a regional manager for some logistics company, I can never remember the name. Always on the road, always, just between meetings. When he does stop by, he spends half the visit on his phone, replying to emails. Last time he came, he brought takeout for dinner. We ate in silence, the sound of plastic forks scraping against the containers filling the room where family laughter used to be. The grandkids are a different story, but not a better one. Jake is 16 now, tall, always wearing headphones. If I ask him anything, I get one-word answers, fine, yeah, no. Lily's 12, always giggling at something on her phone screen. I tried showing her my old photo albums once, thinking she might like to see her dad and aunt as kids. She glanced at a few pictures, said, "Cool," and went back to texting. Out in the world, the feeling is the same, like I'm fading into the background. At the grocery store, people step around me like I'm a piece of furniture. Last month, I went to the post office to mail a package to an old friend in Arizona. I was standing in line when a young guy cut right in front of me. When I said, "Excuse me, I was here," he didn't even turn around. The clerk just called him forward as if I wasn't there at all. Even the medical system feels colder now. At my last appointment, the doctor rushed through the checkup, barely making eye contact. He spoke in quick bursts, like he had somewhere better to be. I wanted to tell him about the chest pains I'd been feeling at night, but when I started, he just said, "That's normal for your age. Take it easy," and moved on. It's not just about being ignored, it's about losing the part of yourself that felt needed. When Sarah was alive, we had purpose together. We raised kids, kept the house running, made plans. Now my days are a mix of routine chores, morning coffee, the same chair by the window, the same street outside. Sometimes I go 2 whole days without speaking to another person. And there's one more thing, that night last month. I still haven't told anyone. I keep thinking about it, wondering if I imagined it. Standing in the kitchen after midnight, hearing those faint footsteps on the porch, opening the door and, well, I'll get to that. But whatever it was, it shook me. Made me realize just how vulnerable I really am now. It was the 21st of last month, I remember, because I'd been watching an old war documentary on TV, the kind Sarah never cared for but always let me watch when she was reading. I'd turned it off around midnight and headed to the kitchen for a glass of water. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet you can almost hear pressing against your ears. That's when I heard it, faint at first, like the creak of a step. My first thought was raccoons, they'd gotten into the trash a couple times before. But then came another sound, softer, more deliberate. Footsteps. Slow ones. I reached for my cane and moved toward the front door. My heart was thumping, but not from fear exactly, more like that old firefighting instinct waking up, the one that tells you to check, to confront. I flicked on the porch light and opened the door. Standing there was a young man, maybe 19 or 20. Thin, pale, with a hoodie pulled halfway over his face. He didn't move at first, just stood in the yellow glow of the porch light, hands stuffed in his pockets. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He glanced up, and for a split second, I thought I saw fear in his eyes. Not the kind you get when you're about to run, but the kind you get when you've already run too far. I didn't know where else to go, he said quietly. I didn't know him. He wasn't from the neighborhood, at least not from my years of knowing every face within a 5-block radius. Something in me said send him away, it's the middle of the night, you're an old man alone. But another part, the part that once ran into burning buildings without thinking, told me to listen. He said his name was Ethan. He'd been on the streets for 3 weeks after a fight with his father. He hadn't eaten all day. His voice cracked when he said it, like he was ashamed. I told him to wait and went inside to make him a sandwich. My hands shook a little as I spread the peanut butter, not because of him, but because I realized how long it had been since someone had stood on my porch needing me. When I brought the plate out, he looked at it like it was a feast. Sat down on the steps and ate without saying much. The air was cold, and I could see his breath in the light. "Thank you, sir," he said finally. I didn't think anyone would even open the door. After he left, said he'd try the shelter downtown, I stood there for a while, watching the street. It felt like I'd been pulled out of my own fog for a moment. Someone had needed me again. And it hit me harder than I expected. Maybe that's why I can't stop thinking about that night. Not because of the danger, there was none, really, but because it reminded me I'm not done yet. I'm not ready to be invisible. I couldn't shake the feeling after that night. The sound of those hesitant footsteps on my porch, the look in Ethan's eyes when I handed him that sandwich, it all kept replaying in my head. I lay in bed afterward, staring at the ceiling, wondering why it had hit me so hard. The truth was simple, for the first time in years, I'd been useful to someone. Not in the small way of paying bills on time or keeping my lawn mowed, but in the real, human way. I'd helped someone who needed help right there, right then. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, looking out at the quiet street. My old leather notebook was lying there, the one I used to keep track of repair jobs, neighborhood calls, and little notes from my firefighter days. I opened it and started jotting down ideas. I could volunteer at the shelter downtown. Or maybe at the community center. I knew how to fix things, bikes, leaky faucets, broken chairs, and I sure had the time. The thought of meeting people, of being part of something again, lit a small fire inside me. I called Emily that afternoon. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked, surprised to hear from me. "I'm fine," I said. "Actually, I'm better than fine. I was thinking, maybe you could drive me downtown this weekend. I want to check out the shelter. See if they need an extra pair of hands." There was a pause. "That's great, Dad." "Really? But are you sure? It's a lot of work." I laughed. "Emily, I used to carry people out of burning buildings. I think I can handle passing out soup." By the weekend, I was standing in the shelter's kitchen, surrounded by the smell of chili and fresh bread. The manager, a woman named Karen, handed me an apron and pointed to a stack of vegetables that needed chopping. My hands were slower than they used to be, but steady. People came through the line, tired faces, some grateful, some too proud to say much. But every single one of them looked me in the eye when I handed them a plate. After my shift, Karen asked if I could come back. I told her I'd see her Tuesday. It didn't stop there. I started fixing things around the shelter, then around the neighborhood. Old Mr. Jenkins down the street had a fence falling apart. I mended it. Mrs. Delgado's porch light was broken. I replaced the bulb and rewired the socket. These were small things, but they mattered. The kids noticed the change in me. Michael stopped by one Saturday and found me sanding a donated table in the garage. "You look busy," he said, almost confused. "Yeah," I told him. "Feels good to be busy." For the first time in years, I wasn't just waiting for the days to pass. I was filling them. I was living them. It's been a month since that knock on my door. Since Ethan. I've seen him twice at the shelter, clean shirt, still a little lost in the eyes, but he's getting back on his feet. Each time we talk for a few minutes, and each time I see a little more hope in him. I didn't do much, just gave him a sandwich, a place to stand for a moment where no one was pushing him away, but maybe that was enough to start something. And that's what I've been thinking about lately. How often the enough in life isn't some grand gesture. It's showing up. It's listening. It's letting someone know they matter. I think back to how I raised Emily and Michael. Sarah and I didn't have fancy parenting theories. We just believed in being there. If they had a school play, we sat in the audience. If they struck out in Little League, we were there to clap anyway. If they came home crying, we didn't say, "Get over it," we asked what happened and listened until they were done. That's my advice for raising a child: be the person they know will always be in their corner, no matter what. Not just when it's easy, not just when you have the time, always. Because the world will get loud, it will get cold, and they need to know there's one place where they'll always be seen and heard. I think that's where I went wrong these past years. I let myself fade into the background, waiting for them to come to me. Maybe I should have been going to them. Maybe I still can. Last Sunday, I invited the whole family over. I cooked Sarah's old meatloaf recipe, the one Emily always asked for on her birthday. I told Jake to bring his guitar, even though I wasn't sure he'd agree. And you know what? He came. He played a couple of songs in the living room while Lily sat beside me looking through an old photo album. She asked me about the time her dad broke his arm falling out of the tree in the backyard. I told her the whole story, and she laughed so hard she had tears in her eyes. For the first time in a long time, the house didn't feel too quiet. It felt alive again. As the evening wound down, Jake asked if we could go fishing sometime, like we used to. I told him I'd pick the day, and he'd better be ready at sunrise. Before they left, Emily hugged me and said, "Dad, you seem different lately. Happier." I told her the truth. I just remembered I'm not done yet. And that's the thing. Old age isn't the end unless you decide to make it one. There's still work to be done, still people to help, still stories to tell. When I think about the night Ethan came to my porch, I realize now, that was my sign. A reminder that even when the world acts like it's finished with you, you can choose to keep showing up. Because someone, somewhere, will need you. And when that moment comes, you'd better be ready to open the door. So, to anyone younger who might read these words someday, don't wait until you're old to understand this. Your worth isn't in the things you own or the titles you've had. It's in the lives you've touched. And the best way to raise a child, or to live your own life, is to make sure the people you love never have to wonder if they matter to you. That's the legacy I want. Not a big house. Not a perfect lawn. Just the knowledge that when someone knocked on my door, no matter their age, no matter the hour, I opened it. Subscribe and like. And tell your friends about this video.